Good morning, everyone. Today we look into the role of purchasing in the value chain. My goal is to discuss with you the role and the importance of the purchasing activities within the overall supply chain, to look at the differences between several terms we will be using in this course, as well as the new development in the purchasing and supply chain management. Let's start with the first point, the role of purchasing in the value chain. We should be aware that the supply chain in general is included in the value chain as described by Porter as primary activities. So we start from the inbound logistics till a part of the operation and then the outbound logistics. While the procurement to which purchasing activities are strictly related is included in the support functions. So there is a bit of supply chain, procurement, purchasing everywhere along the value chain. And these terms, supply chain, procurement, sourcing, purchasing, are often used interchangeably. Let's have a short look at them to get a definition, knowing that in the practice, as well as in some text, they are used rather interchangeably. First of all, supply chain. Supply chain gives us an overall picture. Supply chain wants to represent all the activities that are carried out since the very beginning, which means the raw materials, till the very end, which means the final customer receiving the product or the service. The procurement is mainly described as all the activities that are required in order to get the product from the supplier to its final destination, which means whatever I need to keep my operations going. And more, the focus it's on the total cost of ownership. Purchasing is a bit narrower. It's look at all the activities for which the company receives an invoice from outside parties. And sourcing, stricto sensu, is looking for a supplier. So I'll start a search, I'll start a selection, and then eventually I audit. So this is the overall area we will look at. And you are probably aware that this is an area of growing importance, and that in many industries, the average purchasing value amounts to 60 up to 80%, which means that the decision I'm taking at the sourcing, at the procurement stage, have got a tremendous impact on the bottom line. And we see these trends becoming more and more relevant because of a few developments, all related to the core business. More and more companies are focusing directly on their own core business, so what they are very good in doing, which sometimes is just it's design and marketing, while they get more and more from outside suppliers with respect to the intermediate part of their production, sometimes even the assembly. So purchasing is becoming more and more relevant, and there are several new trends that are very important. And let me highlight a few of them: global sourcing and supplier involvement. Global sourcing is sometimes labeled as sourcing from low labor cost countries, which is true, which is basically the basics. But you should be aware that before going and looking for a cheap supplier, in a global sourcing initiative, I need to work internally in order to standardize my requirements. And sometimes this stage is neglected, and the result at the end of the global sourcing initiative may be not as bright as they were originally thought. So, more and more companies are going offshoring as well as using modular production in order to be able to buy these components, roughly the same components, the same materials, everywhere in the worldwide supply chain. Second element is supply involvement, which can be very strong, often called supplier integration, may be lighter, may start earlier. As I mentioned before, the suppliers are very much engaged in our supply chain because the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, is focusing on the core business. This means that often the suppliers have got technologies that the buyer doesn't have or doesn't master so much. Think about the car manufacturing and the electronics. So the relationship with the supplier is becoming more and more, with some supplier, more and more a partnership. It's not only an arm's length relationship, but it's really a cooperation. We will look at all these points in our following class.